The screams did not begin in silence. They began in laughter. A crowd of young men, dozens of them standing at the edge of a steep road near the ancient city of Bethel, shouting down at a traveling prophet. Their voices carried the weight of mockery, sharpened by arrogance, thrown like stones into the air. And then the air itself changed. 2 bears came out of the forest. What happened next is written in one of the shortest yet most disturbing accounts in the Hebrew Bible. No slow build, no warning, no escape. Just judgment moving faster than human fear. But to understand why that moment tore through history like a blade through cloth, you must first step far backward into the world that produced it. A world where prophets walked dusty roads carrying words that could bless kings or bury nations. A world where disrespect was not just insult, but sometimes consequence. We are in the early monarchic period of ancient Israel, roughly 9th century BCE. The northern kingdom of Israel is unstable, politically fractured, spiritually divided. The worship of Yahweh competes with Baal worship. Cities like Samaria, Bethel, and Jericho are not just geographic markers, they are ideological battlegrounds. Bethel especially carries heavy historical weight. Once a sacred site linked to Jacob, it has now become one of the centers of state-sponsored alternative worship. So when a prophet of Yahweh walks toward it, tension is already in the air. Not every step is welcomed. Not every voice is honored. Now picture the road between Jericho and Bethel. It is a steep ascent. Jericho lies below sea level, while Bethel rises into the central hill country. The path between them is dry, rocky, and exposed. Travelers are visible from a distance. Sound travels easily. There is nowhere to disappear. It is here that Elisha walks. He is known as the successor of Elijah, the prophet who confronted kings and called down fire from heaven. As Elisha ascends, a group emerges from Bethel. The text describes them as young boys, but the Hebrew phrase used, narem kitanim, is debated among scholars. They shout, "Go up, you bald head! Go up, you bald head!" It is not random insult, it is layered mockery. Go up echoes the departure of Elijah, who was taken up into heaven. They are saying, if your master left, why don't you leave too? Elisha turns. The text is brief. He curses them in the name of the Lord. And then from the forest comes 2 bears. The Hebrew text says 2 female bears. In the ancient world, she-bears were considered especially protective and aggressive, particularly when provoked. What follows is described in one line. They tore 42 of the youths. No poetic expansion, no emotional commentary. Just a number. The historians must pause. This is where theology, history, and discomfort collide. The Book of Kings was likely finalized during the Babylonian exile. In this worldview, prophets are covenant messengers. To dishonor them is to dishonor the divine order. That explains why the event is recorded. Archaeology confirms the reality of the setting. Bethel was an active urban center. Travel routes were real. The geography is real. Ancient historian Flavius Josephus retells many narratives. He includes Elisha's story, but his treatment is more restrained, shaped for a Greco-Roman audience. The message is sharp. Disregard for prophetic authority is not harmless. It is treated as rupture. Elisha continues his journey, and the land of Israel continues its long, unstable history under kings who struggle between competing gods. In Part 2, we move closer to Bethel itself, its politics, its worship systems, and the environment that produced such a confrontation. Bethel was never just a city. It was a battlefield disguised as a place of worship. Long before the shouting on that hillside road, before Elisha ever stepped within sight of its gates, Bethel had already become one of the most dangerous spiritual fault lines in all of ancient Israel. To understand why those voices rose against him with such confidence, you must understand the city they came from, because cities shape people, their beliefs, their loyalties, their courage, and sometimes their rebellion. The name Bethel means house of God. The irony is almost painful. Centuries earlier, Jacob, fleeing from his brother Esau, slept with a stone beneath his head and dreamed of a ladder stretching into heaven. When he awoke, he declared the place sacred. Surely the Lord is in this place. It was here that Jacob set up a stone pillar, consecrated the ground, and named it Bethel. From that moment, the site carried memory, sacred memory, memory of encounter, memory of covenant, memory of heaven touching earth. But history has a way of reshaping holy places. By the 9th century BCE, the Bethel Elisha approached was no longer simply Jacob's Bethel. It had become a political instrument. The fracture began after the death of King Solomon. Around 930 BCE, the United Kingdom split in two. To the south stood Judah, ruled from Jerusalem. To the north emerged Israel, ruled first by Jeroboam, son of Nebat. Jeroboam faced an immediate political problem. Jerusalem remained in Judah, and Jerusalem housed the temple. If northern Israelites continued traveling south for worship, their loyalties might drift back toward the Davidic monarchy. For Jeroboam, this was not just a religious issue. It was a national security threat. So he acted. According to 1 Kings 12, Jeroboam established alternative worship centers at Dan and Bethel. He erected golden calves and declared, "Here are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." It was a calculated religious redirection, not necessarily a complete rejection of Yahweh, but a dangerous blending of covenant worship with politically motivated symbolism, a counterfeit sanctity, close enough to feel familiar, different enough to corrupt, and Bethel became one of its chief altars. Archaeological evidence supports Bethel's importance. The identification with modern Byton has yielded Iron Age remains consistent with substantial occupation. Excavations reveal fortifications, domestic structures, and evidence of administrative significance. Bethel was no forgotten outpost. It was active, strategic, connected. The road Elisha walked was not some isolated trail. It was part of a network linking political and religious centers. Travelers, merchants, and priests moved through it constantly, which means something vital. The confrontation with Elisha likely happened in a visible public setting. This was not hidden mockery whispered from alleys. This was open challenge, public challenge. The crime that reflects confidence born from cultural support, and that support had deep roots. By Elisha's time, generations had grown up under this altered religious system. Children raised in Bethel would have heard official narratives. They would have inherited suspicion toward prophets who condemned the system. To them, prophets like Elijah and Elisha were disruptors, threats, men who challenged the religious legitimacy of their city. This is where the encounter begins to sharpen. Those voices on the road were not random. They came from an environment already conditioned for resistance. The prophetic conflict with Bethel had a long history. Nearly 2 centuries before Elisha, another prophet from Judah entered Bethel. He stood before Jeroboam's altar and declared judgment. When Jeroboam stretched out his hand to seize him, the king's hand withered instantly. The altar split apart. Ashes spilled. The sign was unmistakable. Bethel had been warned, publicly, powerfully, and yet the city remained what it was, a center of contested worship, a place where prophetic voices were resisted. Elisha was not entering neutral ground. He was stepping into inherited hostility. Ancient communities remembered stories. In Bethel, stories of prophets condemning local worship would not have been forgotten. By the time Elisha approached, he was not merely a traveler. He was a representative of a long-standing challenge. And everyone knew it. This helps explain the phrase hurled at him. Go up. On the surface, it sounds almost childish. But within its historical moment, it may have carried devastating precision. Elijah had recently been taken up into heaven in the whirlwind. That event would have spread quickly. If the youths of Bethel had heard of Elijah's ascent, then their taunt becomes darker. Go up. In other words, disappear like your master. Leave us, take your judgment elsewhere. We do not want your presence here. This was not playground teasing, it was rejection. The rejection of prophetic intrusion. Even the mockery of boldness may carry deeper layers. Some suggest it could imply ritual impurity or social contempt. Ancient insult language often worked symbolically. The goal was degradation, the stripping of dignity before witnesses. In honor-shame cultures, public humiliation carried real force. To mock a prophet publicly was to test whether his authority held power. Would he react? Would his God respond? Would anything happen at all? The crowd may have expected nothing. That expectation itself tells us much about Bethel's spiritual condition. This is where the silence before the bears becomes chilling. Elisha does not debate. He does not plead. He does not explain covenant theology. He turns. He speaks a curse in the name of the Lord, and judgment follows. To modern ears, this feels abrupt, harsh, even excessive. But within the historical logic of covenant literature, it reflects something ancient Israel understood. Sacred authority was not infinitely negotiable. There were moments when challenge crossed into defiance, and defiance invited response. The Hebrew Bible repeatedly frames covenant relationship through blessings and curses. Deuteronomy 28 lays this out in striking detail. Obedience brings life. Disobedience brings calamity, invasion, and wild beasts. Yes, wild beasts. Leviticus 26 explicitly warns that covenant rebellion could result in God sending wild animals among the people. The bears are not random creatures. Within Israel's covenant imagination, they are recognizable instruments of judgment. Their appearance signals theological consequence. To ancient readers, the connection would have been immediate. This was not simply nature acting violently. It was covenant warning made visible. And still, Bethel would continue. Its altars, its priests, its resistance. Elisha's encounter did not instantly transform the city. Historical change rarely happens that way. Warning does not guarantee repentance. Signs do not guarantee submission. The city would remain contested ground until later reforms and eventual Assyrian conquest reshaped the northern kingdom forever. But for one moment on that road, Bethel's confidence cracked. and everyone who heard what happened would have understood the message. The prophet was not powerless. The God he represented was not absent, and the old warnings still stood. Yet part 2 leaves us with a harder question. Who exactly were these 42? Were they rebellious young men acting with calculated hostility? Temple affiliates? A mob shaped by spiritual distortion? The answer lies hidden in language itself. And in part 3, we descend into the Hebrew text word by word, phrase by phrase, to uncover what the original language reveals about one of the Bible's most misunderstood confrontations. Language can hide as much as it reveals, and nowhere is that more true than in the few Hebrew words describing the crowd at Bethel. For centuries, translators have wrestled with this passage. One English Bible says little children, another says small boys, others say youths, still others choose young men. At first glance, this may seem like a minor technical disagreement, but it changes everything. Because if this was a pack of toddlers taunting a prophet, the story becomes almost unbearable to modern readers. If it was a large group of aggressive young men confronting a prophetic figure in hostile territory, the historical and theological picture shifts dramatically. The difference rests in 2 Hebrew words, na-arim ketanim, and these words deserve careful attention. The term na-a appears throughout the Hebrew Bible with a broad range of meaning. It can refer to an infant or a servant. It can refer to a military attendant. It can even refer to men old enough for combat. The word does not map neatly onto our modern categories of child or teenager. Consider biblical examples like Isaac during the Akedah narrative. Scholars believe he was likely old enough to carry wood and understand the gravity of ritual. Joseph is called a Na'ar at age 17. Absalom's military-age attendants are called Na-arim. Even royal officials and armed retainers are described with this term. The word indicates social position, status, or relational role as much as biological age. This matters immensely. When the text says Na'arim, it does not force us to imagine children. It opens a much wider historical possibility. Then comes the second word, kitnim, usually translated small or little. Again, context determines meaning. It can describe physical size, but it can also indicate relative status, insignificance, or junior standing. The same root is used for social inferiority, youthfulness in comparison to elders, or lesser importance within a hierarchy. Taken together, Na'arim Ketnam may mean young subordinates, junior youths, or young men of lower social rank, but it does not require the image of helpless little boys. This is where centuries of misunderstanding have distorted the story. Translations shaped by early modern conventions rendered the phrase in ways that evoke childhood innocence. People hear little children and understandably recoil. The emotional picture becomes almost impossible to reconcile with the severity of what follows. But Hebrew specialists note the elasticity of the phrase. The crowd could have included older adolescents or young adult males, and the scale of the incident supports this reading. Remember the number, 42. The text says the bears mauled 42 of them. That implies a gathering significantly larger than 42, a substantial crowd, large enough to create a threatening public confrontation. It strains imagination to picture 2 bears against dozens of scattered toddlers. The context points toward an organized group capable of collective action. Ancient Jewish interpretation often understood this. Rabbinic discussions frequently treated the event as involving serious transgression, not childish playfulness. The focus was on rebellion. The offense was covenantal, not juvenile silliness. Later commentators emphasized the group's moral accountability. Even when debate existed over exact age, the assumption of deliberate hostility remained central. This was no accidental misunderstanding. And then there is the mocking phrase itself. Go up, bald head. In Hebrew, ale karich, short, sharp, rhythmic, designed for repetition. The structure almost invites chanting. This is not one person making a spontaneous insult. It sounds collective. Imagine it on that road, the rocky incline, the dry wind moving dust across exposed stone, Elisha climbing. Then the first voice. Then another, then many. Go up, bald head. The words gathering force as others join in. This is public humiliation ritual. In the ancient Near East, public humiliation was serious social aggression. Honor-shame cultures operated by different mechanics. Public insult was not casual. It challenged status, tested legitimacy, and demanded response. To remain silent could signal weakness. For a prophet carrying Elijah's mantle, this was an attempted stripping of visible authority. And given Bethel's history, that authority was not merely personal. It represented Yahweh's claim against the city's compromised worship system. This is symbolic confrontation, the city speaking through its youth, the prophetic office being tested. The text simply says he turned, saw them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. He does not curse them in anger by his own authority. He invokes covenant authority. This aligns his action with formal prophetic pronouncement. In biblical narrative, to curse in the name of the Lord is an invocation of divine judgment. Elisha is acting officially, not impulsively. The Hebrew root beka means to split, tear open, or rip apart. Yet the text does not explicitly say all 42 died. The severity is undeniable, but the exact outcome remains unstated. Some scholars suggest injury rather than universal death. The ambiguity serves the story's purpose. Its force lies in sudden judgment. The writer gives no description of blood or reaction from Elisha. By withholding elaboration, it leaves the event stark and unavoidable. The reader is forced to confront the raw claim without cushioning. The story serves to establish Elisha's authority after Elijah's departure. Just before this, Elisha parted the Jordan and purified Jericho's waters. 3 episodes. 3 escalating demonstrations. Nature obeys him. Blessing flows through him. Judgment follows his word. The youths came out of the city. In biblical narrative, this often signals collective movement toward encounter. It implies initiative. A careful reading does not erase the difficulty. The bears remain. The judgment remains. But the nature of the confrontation becomes richer. No longer a prophet cursing innocent children, now a prophet confronting public covenant defiance. That difference changes the entire frame. Why bears? Why 42? In Part 4, we will uncover why the bears carry meaning far deeper than sudden violence on a roadside. The bears were never just bears. That is the first truth we must confront if we are to understand this passage. To modern readers, the event feels abrupt, almost random wild animals appearing from nowhere, a shocking burst of violence. But to an ancient Israelite steeped in covenant language, The appearance of those bears would have carried immediate meaning. This was not random nature, it was a sign, a message written in claws and fury. The Hebrew Bible repeatedly presents the natural world as responsive to divine authority. Creation is not detached from covenant. It participates in it. The God of Israel is sovereign over storm, soil, famine, beast, and breath itself. So when animals appear in biblical narrative at significant moments, ancient readers ask, what is being said? What warning is being delivered? The bears near Bethel fit squarely within this framework. To trace this symbolism, we begin with covenant law itself in Leviticus 26. God says he will send wild beasts among the people. These beasts will rob them of children and make roads desolate. Wild animals represented disorder breaking through when covenant order collapsed. Their presence was a theological signal, because when two bears emerge on the road to Bethel, ancient readers would immediately hear the echo of covenant warning. This setting intensifies this. The road from Jericho to Bethel moved through rugged hill country where wildlife was plausible. Archaeological studies confirm the Syrian brown bear once inhabited these regions during the Iron Age. The miracle lies not in the existence of bears, but in their precise appearance and timing. Their emergence becomes providential. The Hebrew specifies she-bears. Across ancient literature, female bears, especially when threatened, were known for fierce aggression. In Hosea, divine judgment is compared to a bear robbed of her cubs. This image invokes focused, unstoppable rage. Throughout Elisha's ministry, nature functions as extension of prophetic authority. Creation answers to covenant authority. 3 public signs establish his ministry: power over waters, power to bless, and power to judge. The number 42 specifies the youths involved. Ancient Hebrew narrative rarely includes numbers carelessly. Wilderness was liminal space. When the bears emerge from the woods near Bethel, chaos crosses into the ordered human sphere. Josephus understood what many modern readers miss. The point is not zoological curiosity. It is authority. The story resists easy domestication. Its violence confronts us. It is a warning preserved in narrative form. After Bethel, no one could view him merely as Elijah's shadow. Elisha established one of the most formidable ministries in biblical history. After Bethel, Elisha is no longer introduced. He is recognized. That is the quiet shift in the narrative, but it carries enormous weight. Before the road to Bethel, he is the one who carried Elijah's mantle. After Bethel, he is something else entirely. A prophet whose words are no longer only heard, but feared, because something has been proven. In the most ancient way, societies understood power, not through argument, not through persuasion, but through consequence. To understand how this moment reshaped Elisha's authority, we must return to what prophetic identity meant in ancient Israel. A prophet was not a philosopher, not a moral teacher, not a political commentator. A prophet was a covenant enforcer, a living signal that the words spoken at Sinai were not forgotten. He stood between heaven and a nation that constantly drifted, and that position came with tension built into it, because prophets rarely arrived to confirm comfort. They arrived to correct direction, and correction in any age is rarely welcomed. Elisha inherits this role immediately after Elijah's departure, and the text of 2 Kings chapter 2 is structured almost like a coronation through action. There is no throne, no ceremony, no public announcement. Instead, there is a sequence of signs that function as validation. First, the Jordan River parts when Elisha strikes it with Elijah's cloak. That moment is not just miracle, it is succession imagery. It echoes Moses and Joshua, authority passing through water. Then comes Jericho, where the city's water source is healed. That is not random kindness. It is a statement. The prophet does not only judge collapse, he restores broken systems. And then Bethel, where authority is tested, not in private, not in safety, but in public confrontation. By the time Elisha leaves Bethel, 3 things have been established. He controls access points of life, purifies corruption, and carries power that responds to violation. Now consider what happens socially. Even without modern systems, news in the ancient world traveled quickly along trade routes and pilgrimage paths. Imagine how it spreads. A traveler speaks at an inn. A merchant repeats it at a market. A soldier recounts it at a campfire. Did you hear what happened near Bethel? Not as rumor. As warning, the new prophet is not powerless, and his God is not passive. Bethel was part of the northern kingdom's ideological structure. If prophetic authority could challenge it, the legitimacy of the entire system was questioned. This is why prophets were dangerous, not because they wielded armies, but because they claimed allegiance higher than the throne. Authority also presses inward on the prophet himself. Elisha is clearly operating under immense spiritual weight. Every action is public. Does prophetic authority increase personal isolation? The biblical narrative often suggests yes. Their message creates distance. After Bethel, the narrative gives no emotional commentary from Elisha. Only movement. He continues traveling. He continues acting. Prophetic identity overtakes personal identity. Questioning the messenger becomes questioning the source behind him. The Bethel event remains unresolved. It forces a confrontation with the uncomfortable intersection of holiness, judgment, and human behavior. Ancient texts preserve this tension. For the audience, the bears were both a real encounter and a theological sign of legitimacy. Elisha's identity has shifted, religiously confirmed, socially demanding, and narratively active. This carries forward into everything that follows. As Elisha moves away, the land behind him does not remain neutral. It remembers, it interprets, it responds. Prophetic authority ripples, it challenges, it reshapes everything it touches. In Part 6, we move into those ripples. What begins as a roadside confrontation does not remain on the roadside. It spreads, not like fire and dry grass, but like a rumor that refuses to die, changing shape each time it is told. It gains weight with every retelling until it becomes something larger than the moment itself. In the ancient world, events do not stay events for long. They become memory, and memory becomes meaning, and meaning becomes power. By the time Elisha moves deeper into his ministry, Israel is already shifting beneath pressure that cannot be seen on the surface. The northern kingdom is not stable stone. It is cracked ground held together by politics, fear, and religious compromise. Kings rise and fall. Alliances shift. Foreign influence presses in from every border. And beneath it all, the question of loyalty, political and spiritual, never stops burning. Elisha steps directly into that unstable world. And after Bethel, he does so with a reputation he did not ask for but cannot escape. The biblical narrative begins to present him differently now, not just as Elijah's successor, but as a figure whose words carry immediate consequence. In ancient royal systems, that kind of figure cannot be ignored. He must either be accepted or managed. He moves through Gilgal, Jericho, Samaria, and surrounding territories. Each location is not just geography, it is political space. Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom, especially becomes significant. It is the seat of royal power. Prophets who move through capitals inevitably intersect with authority structures, even when they do not seek confrontation. Such figures are unpredictable within royal systems. They cannot be fully controlled. They cannot be fully dismissed. Their legitimacy is not granted by the king. It is claimed from a higher source. The Bethel incident contributes to this perception, not as isolated miracle, but as precedent. A moment where rejection of prophetic authority was followed by unmistakable consequence. Precedent is more powerful than argument. We begin to see subtle narrative echoes of this authority. When he speaks, things happen. When he acts, systems respond. During this period, the Neo-Assyrian Empire is expanding. The pressure is already building. Israel is not isolated. It is exposed. And exposure increases instability. Religious fragmentation becomes political vulnerability. Competing centers of worship are not merely theological differences. Prophets function as interpretive voices. They explain events. They declare meaning over crisis. Famine, war, drought, defeat, victory, all are interpreted, not just experienced. He is not only performing acts, he is interpreting reality, and interpretation is power. Royal courts have their prophets. State institutions have their religious systems, and Elisha stands outside all of these, prophetic warning, public response or rejection, judgment or consequence, interpretive confirmation. Even the silence after the bears matters. No pursuit, no reversal. In ancient logic, silence signals finality. The message is delivered. The boundary is marked. The authority is established. Archaeology confirms the cities and the culture, but not individual roadside encounters. This silence is expected. This is theological history, concerned not only with what happened, but with what it means. As Elisha moves forward, he is no longer simply a traveler. He is a threshold figure. After Bethel, no one can read Elisha's story without awareness of consequence. Every miracle is now read through the lens of authority. The real confrontation between prophetic word and national destiny is still unfolding. The road to Bethel was only the beginning. In Part 7, we enter that collision point where prophecy becomes intervention in the survival of Israel itself. Before kings kneel, nations tremble. And before nations tremble, the land itself begins to speak in silence. Drought does not arrive loudly. It comes like a slow closing fist. First the wells weaken, then the soil hardens, then the sky forgets how to open. In Elisha's world, crisis is never just climate. It is message, and the message now begins to spread beyond Bethel, beyond roads and crowds, into the very structure of the northern kingdom's survival. By this stage in the narrative arc, Elisha is no longer operating at the margins. He is inside its core pressure points. Kings hear of him. Officials respond to him. Communities interpret their suffering through the lens of his presence. Because once a prophetic figure is established as authoritative, every national event becomes a question. Is this coincidence or covenant consequence? The northern kingdom, already unstable politically, now faces layered crises. military pressure from surrounding powers, and internal leadership conflicts. A failed harvest was not inconvenience. It was collapse in slow motion. In this environment, prophetic authority becomes especially charged, because whoever interprets the crisis shapes how people endure it. If drought is seen as covenant rupture, response becomes spiritual, political, and existential. The narrative of 2 Kings begins to show him interacting not just with individuals but with systems. Cities respond to his presence. Even kings, at moments of desperation, reach toward prophetic voice as a last interpretive authority, not because they always agree, but because they cannot ignore it. This is where the earlier Bethel event becomes part of a larger psychological backdrop. Resistance to prophetic word carries consequence. That memory does not need constant repetition. It lingers beneath later encounters. It alters how authority is perceived before words are even spoken. Elisha is not portrayed as wandering in fear or domination. He moves through crisis zones with measured authority, like a messenger within a larger system. Prophets are not kings. They do not build empires. They interpret collapse and continuity at the intersection of divine claim and human disorder. In later chapters, the pattern is consistent. A crisis emerges, human systems fail, prophetic word provides direction, and the outcome shifts. Scholars note that such narratives reflect the broader role of prophetic groups. Prophets were not isolated mystics. They were embedded in social networks. Archaeological evidence confirms the Iron Age reality: small kingdoms under pressure, fortified cities, and religious centers competing for influence. Meanwhile, Assyrian expansion continues to reshape the regional horizon. Tribute demands increase pressure on local kings, forcing unstable alliances. If a prophet declares divine judgment upon a king, that declaration can affect morale, alliances, and public perception. Prophetic speech carries social force. But there is a deeper tension. Prophetic authority produces conflict, often isolating the messenger, even as it amplifies the message. Elisha's growing influence intensifies the contrast between those who accept prophetic interpretation and those who reject it. If prophetic authority is valid, then national crisis is not random. Leadership accountability increases, and political stability becomes fragile. The text maintains restraint. There is no excess spectacle, only sequence, action, and interpretation. This keeps it anchored in an operational world. Kings still rule, cities still function. But beneath it all, something has changed. The awareness that divine human interaction is embedded in history. As this part of the story closes, Elisha moves toward the next stage where prophecy will intersect with life and death political decisions. In Part 8, we reach the final movement, where Elisha's authority and Israel's instability converge into a final reflection on prophetic judgment.